Okay, the Realms Deep bullshit is done, so we can just talk like normal human beings now. This is
Excellent.
great. Um, I've been really itching to be able to talk about this game because it's like, well, it's public on Twitter, but like, don't tell anyone that you know anything about it. And I'm like, fuck.
Did
Oh,
you
this
did you
sucks.
want to say that in your best Fred impression again too?
No, I mean, I can. Oh, let me try. Like, this is under heavy DNA, DNA, whatever. No, I'm not going to be able to do my Fred impression.
Oh, you did it so well earlier.
I
It
had
was
to have
so
a few
good.
more beers before we get there. Um, God, everybody who's Danish says my Danish accent sucks, but everybody who's not Danish is like, oh, that sounds just like Fred. I'm like, I know. Jeez.
Me with my boring American accent. Every time I like talk with somebody from 3D Realms or like play games with one of them, and I just I love it. I love the Danish accent. Don't get enough of it. All I ever got was the Minnesotan accent up in Michigan, and that was about the closest I ever got.
I have a really good ear for like Dutch accents, that like I can kind of get that, nail that one pretty well. German, I can't really tell the difference between German and like Swiss and Austrian necessarily, but I mean, like, I can hear German. Danish is weird. It's like it's just not one that you hear in the media all the time. There's just
Yeah,
not a lot of representation, I guess. But I get plenty of an earful from Fred, so. And Alex.
yeah. Alex and I play Phasmophobia sometimes, and that's just great. If there's anything I love, it's hearing a Danish person get killed by a ghost over the walkie-talkie. Really, just a good time.
So in real time, this hasn't happened yet, but since most people will hear this interview, actually pretty much everybody but the editors will hear this interview after the fact. What does it feel like to finally be able to kind of like break the big news and talk about everything that's been going on?
Oh man, you have no idea. I'm casting this, of course, to future Jason, but right now it's like, kind of like I said in the shorter interview,
Mm-hmm.
like game development's been a passion of mine since I was in like fifth grade, like really long time. I'm almost 30 now by comparison, and so it's with all like everything, all of my like dreams coming true in terms of like getting a game to market and getting to work with like an actual like company and everything. I've just wanted to brag about it to everybody. I'm like, yeah, I'm working on this game, and like so somebody's interested in it, but I can't really say who. And I'm going to be like featuring it like pretty soon, but I can't say where. And I'll say the really fun thing is that 1 week after Realms Deep is my 10-year high school reunion, and so which was delayed 1 year because of COVID. But it'll be really nice when people ask me what I'm up to, and I'm like, I'm a game developer. I made it. Here we go. Which because that's what a lot of people knew that about me in high school too, mainly because that's what I would do in all my computer lab classes. So
This is gonna sound really mean, but one of my favorite things to do is like realize that people who were shitty to me in high school now like work at gas stations or aren't doing anything cool. Um, I want everyone to do well, but
yeah. I went to school with a lot of like doctors' kids, and so I'm expecting them to to be like, yeah, I'm a game developer now, and they're like, oh, does that pay the bills? I'm like, no, not really, but it's fun someday though. That's the dream, right?
I mean, you're pursuing your passions, and then
That's
there's
right.
there's something to be said for that. A lot of people are too afraid to. They're I want security, and I don't want to ever stray from the beaten path because
Yeah.
there's no tried and true way for me to confirm that will ever be beneficial to me and my family. I get all that.
Yeah.
I am going through that currently, but
Well,
I
it's just
just tremendous respect for anybody who's willing to just go out on a limb and try it.
yeah, it's just tough because like I do work full time right now, which is why
Mhm.
cultic development is fairly slow, because I just work on it in my free time, and it's really draining because like I get off work and then I put on my developer hat and then I just work on cultic, and then like my actual free time I'm trying to spend time with my girlfriend or with my friend group, or just trying to relax. But then if I'm doing any of that, I'm like, man, I could be at home working on cultic right now. I probably should be working on this map. I should be working on this background track. And so it's tempting, I felt like maybe I should just like take my savings and work on cultic full time. But it's so hard because I've been working full time pretty much since I turned 18. So it's, I'm just like, I'm so that like switching away from that financial stability is such like a scary thing for me. So it would be really nice to work on CULTIC full time, and it would certainly get the game into people's hands a lot faster. And so we'll see. We'll see. I'm trying to sell my house right now, so maybe I'll get lucky and just have a windfall of cash from that. Not likely, but hey, maybe someone will just fall in love with it.
Maybe as we get that, early access and pre-order kind of stuff, merchandise starts to flow, you'll be like, hey,
That's right.
Kind of relax now.
We'll start moving these CULTIC figurines.
Yes.
We won't tell the consumers that these cost 25 cents for me to print at home, but it's.
We forgot to mention that CULTIC is not really a video game; it's actually a tabletop RPG.
Yep.
And it comes with all these figurines, and it costs $120 at market value. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep.
No, I've been, like I said, I've been dying to talk about it. I'm just looking at all the cool videos that you've been posting and everything, and I'm just like, this looks fucking cool. I'm also a huge fan of Blood and anything. I wouldn't be here if I weren't a fan of those types of games, obviously. And it has that right aesthetic. It also has what engine are you developing in?
This is all being done in Unity.
Yeah, so it does have a very clearly this is Unity vibe to it, I guess, now that you've told me that. But there's a lot of people who are really successful right now at pulling off that old school look in a way that feels authentic. Another one that I was thinking of would be like, I don't know if you've seen Scoot Hard DX, which will be debuted here at Realms Deep as Project Absentia, completely changing kind of the theme of the game, but still maintaining
Scoot like a scooter, Scoot Hard.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look. I haven't seen it, but I'm gonna look it up right now.
It's a pony game, just so you know. Built in the Doom engine, but they really pull off the kind of build engine style gameplay in the Doom engine, which was like very interesting to me. I love that, and just looking at what you've done so far. There's a reason why Fred was debating with me.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the plethora of like hand drawn games that we're getting right now. Is it Fallen Aces? I think is one of them. The noir mobster that's like all like hand drawn, HUD sprites and enemies and everything. And then I can't. Oh, is it? I'm not just sit here and wonder, but there's another one that someone's working on my Twitter. Is it? I think it's maybe Hellslinger. Yeah, Hellslinger is a Z-Doom mod where they're doing all hand-drawn stuff as well, and it's just got. I love it. I think it's great. Plus, there's an M79 in that game, which kind of harkens back to the weapon aesthetic that I've got going on for CULTIC. So that's always nice to see.
Yeah, Fallen Ace is really interesting, but it's been taking like forever. I feel like they debuted it last year, right? Or at Realms Deep. I think it was independent when it was Fallen Angels when they were first kind of getting ready to show it off. And then sometime in that time frame between when we knew it was going to be part of the show and when it debuted, New Blood picked it up and it became Fallen Aces.
Oh, okay.
Like Dave had sent me some kind of weird cryptic message. Dave is like really weird about doing this where he'll just send me shit that like, I don't know what the fuck you mean. And then I'm like, oh, like a few weeks later, I get it now. But he sent me like this thing with like cards flying everywhere. And I was like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? And I guess he was trying to cryptically tell me like, oh, it's Fallen Aces now, bitch. Nice.
Were the cards all aces? Should this have been obvious from the get-go?
Well, it wouldn't have been obvious because I knew the game was Fallen Angels.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, you got me there.
I don't know. I guess he was just fucking with my brain, but that's Dave for you.
Yeah, the thing that actually kicked off my wrist. So like I just started working on CULTIC in January of this year. Mm-hmm. And the thing that really like kicked it back off again was I finally played oh god, now I'm gonna sound like an idiot 'cause I can't remember what it's called. There's a blood campaign, like a blood mod campaign that's like really, really popular, and I don't know why I can't remember what it's called right now, and it's gonna drive me nuts. But anyway, there's a YouTuber that I watch that does like retro game reviews, and he played through it, and I was like, I wasn't even aware there were mod campaigns for Blood, which I guess I should have guessed because there's mod campaigns for pretty much every retro shooter out there. But I played through that, and I was like, all right, like I need to try this again.
And Can you kind of get into a bit of the theme of the game? I mean, it's cultic, we get that, but like, is there any particular thing that makes that part of it stand out? Is there a story behind that?
Yeah, so I won't get too big into the campaign because so much of it's going to, the story's probably going to change a lot as I continue to develop it.
Mm-hmm.
But more or less, Death Wish. That's the name of the Blood campaign. Thank you.
Oh
God,
yeah, yeah.
jeez, Death Wish. Okay, if you haven't played Death Wish, play it. It's phenomenal. It's great. So the basic premise behind Cultic is that there's been like a rash, just like a string of missing persons and kidnappings in the area, just like tons of people just mysteriously vanishing, never to be seen again. And you, as this kind of this like rogue detective investigator type person, like I said, story details kind of still getting hashed out.
Mm-hmm.
You basically go to like investigate this to try to figure out what's going on, and you kind of start to trace all of this activity back to one area surrounding this kind of like this asylum. This, and it has this big compound around it, and it's supposed to be abandoned. But as your character arrives there to kind of check out what's going on, he's immediately found and shot dead. So beginning of the game, before you even play, you die. That's just, a really, really tough game like that. But the what you had actually stumbled onto was pretty much the height of this cult that's been gathering, and the height of their activity, where they are going to be performing a ritual to try to summon a kind of just an ancient force, an ancient evil from the earth. And what they unwittingly do when this ritual happens is they release just an absolute cascade of forces and spirits. I don't really call them like demons or anything outright, but and these forces are what are possessing these cultists, and they're kind of willing vessels for the forces. But as you lay in this mass grave dying from this just gunshot wound through the chest, one of these forces decides to latch onto your character, effectively bringing back to the dead one very pissed off, rogue detective, rogue agent. And so that was kind of the premise that I was working with coming into this. The idea of your character like waking up in this mass grave with nothing but like a hatchet that he kind of gets off of a chopping block nearby, and then he just kind of is like, well, like I'm in the thick of it now. And you just like the first thing you see is just this compound, and you walk into it and you just start tearing it up, just start ravaging this cult that so rudely ended your life. And so it kind of plays off of that like Doom guy energy of just like an entity that's just too pissed off to die kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where the whole story like took shape, was that it's just you're just exacting your revenge, and whether there's going to be angles of like a personal involvement here, and maybe they've kidnapped somebody, a loved one of this particular person, or whether it's purely just his duty to the force, the police force, not the like cosmic force or anything that Disney would get mad at me for saying. He's just kind of drawn there to try to get this all knocked out. The story is very much in limbo right now. I'm still just working on trying to get to feature lock, really. And just get something that feels good to play, a bunch of systems that work well together, and then trying to work with the team to kind of flesh out the story. Because story writing is definitely one of my weaker points, I'll admit, alongside level design. My former game development career, so to speak, was a lot of just like one-off ideas that I'd put together to see how it played, and then I'd move on to something else. Or a couple of the larger games I made or started working on were roguelites. So it was building a lot of like smaller set pieces and then letting a procedural engine stitch them together. But nothing that really had much of like lore behind it, or like large sweeping levels for characters to walk through. So a lot of this is very new to me, which is why it's been great having the support of the team to like bounce ideas off of and whatnot. Which I've kind of been able to do a little bit of that on like Twitter. But the problem with that is you get for every one good suggestion you might get, you get 100 others that are just folks seeing what they want to see in the game instead of considering the game for what it is and what would fit in that game. And you start getting suggestions for stuff that just wouldn't work in your game, and then I feel bad like having to shoot people down, because I appreciate their input, but like no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not adding that to my game. And so it's really nice working with a team who's familiar with Cultic, and who's kind of familiar with my goals for what I want the game to look like, and kind of help shape that, especially in the areas that I'm a little weaker in. So that's been a great help. I don't know if that answers the original question, because I think I've rambled enough that I forgot what the original question was.
Well,
But there you go.
you completely answered the question. What's the background of the story? And then you
Right.
just
Oh,
kind of,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
just
Okay. Well, there
ran
you
with
go.
it. That's fine
Yeah.
though. Yeah. It's just tangential. I'm pretty pissed off at Chris Ryan for taking the name Tangentially Speaking for his podcast before I got around to it. But,
Oh, yeah, that's rough.
No, it's fine. We have a good name too. But yeah, the story itself has its own unique twist, I guess, in the beginning there. But there are some pretty common tropes involved. And I was wondering, is there any particular story influence that brought you to that theme in general? I can think of a few other kind of similar stories. I mean, obviously, there's the Lovecraft stuff with the cults trying to summon demons. There's Arx Fatalis. There's Faith. There's, it's not the most original, I guess, idea in the world
Right.
to infiltrate a cult. But what were your influences? I'm curious.
So, like the original, I mean, obviously the original influence for like the game and the themes of the game as a whole was all very much from Blood. Everything's horror themed. Everything's got a very like grungy, gritty atmosphere to it, and you're just kind of playing as this character who seemingly is on like a rampage. But as far as like the story itself goes, part of it, which is actually an idea that I think is probably going to wind up on the chopping chopping block, was. If you played the Shadow Warrior, read the remake from, what was that, when did that come out? 2012?
It's 2012, 2013, that kind of time frame, but the digital version. Yeah.
So that, and then Shadows of the Damned, if you've played either of those, they're both kind of feature this like this like demonic spirit sidekick character who's kind of there as like a comic relief, but also as a vessel to explore, or kind of like as like a story device to explain why your character has supernatural abilities. And so my original idea was kind of that when the cult kind of cracked open this portal to this other dimension, and all these entities came forth, this one that latched onto your character because you weren't a willing vessel for them is kind of like wrestling with the protagonist for control. And so you've kind of got this really annoyed like entity or demon or whatever latched onto you that kind of is giving you power and giving you the ability to soak up all these bullets, but at the same time kind of just exists as like a comic relief side character. But then I realized that my writing for comedy was a little too weak to pull that off, and so that kind of fell by the wayside. But so I started to morph that idea, and I was like, well, I don't know that I really want the game to be a comedy. Like Shadows of the Damned is a I think it's a Suda 51 game, if I remember right, and that kind of just like lends it to this absolutely surreal. And if I'm wrong on that, I'm really sorry, but it kind of lends itself to this like surreal, over the top, like just chaotic comedy. And I was like, I can't pull that off. So I kind of morphed the story into, well, I still really like the idea of your character. Just like the game starts with, you're obviously way out of your depth. You're just a regular guy who goes to chase down a lead on all these kidnappings. And it's like, you're not like the lone soldier in Medal of Honor, right? Who manages to like end World War II single-handedly. You're a regular guy who goes into this compound and gets your ass kicked. Like, you walk in there to all these cultists, and they just, you ring the doorbell, you get an axe through the chest or a bullet through the chest, or however I decide to actually end the protagonist's life. And through this pure accident, whatever poor cultist who was on head chopping duty that day, who didn't get around to finishing the player character off, is just, he's probably going to get fired, because now he's back and he's really mad, and he's got a C96 and a shotgun. And so, that was kind of the origin for the original story. And then just kind of been adapting it based on like, well, the gameplay so far it's been so simple, and just like without the player talking or anything, there's just this real simplicity to kind of sneaking around and blowing enemies away. And I decided maybe that side character isn't really needed. So like I said, everything's kind of still pending right now. And I'm hoping that some of the feedback from this demo will be able to help shape the gameplay and the things that we need to do there, while we're able to kind of work on the story and things on the side. So definitely focusing on features right now still. So story pending, story to come, story work in progress.
So you mentioned earlier when we were kind of off record that you like guns. Obviously,
I do.
It's a good thing when you're making shooters to enjoy those sorts of things?
I got my little Nerf Mauser C96. Well, it's not C96; it's a magazine. But yeah, I'm a big gun guy. I'm not like a huge collector, mainly because they're expensive. But I just always, growing up playing games with guns in them, and have just always really had a fascination with them. And then now I'm blessed to have several friends that live in rural areas where you have enough land to actually go out and shoot cans and stuff. And so yeah, I really like things that go bang, and I have a real thing for like that that like wood grain aesthetic, just like those like World War II, Cold War era weaponry, and a little like late World War I stuff. More than I'm into like modern like AR builds and stuff like that. And so like every time I go to a gun show, I wind up picking up something that just looks cool. And the guy's like, "Oh, that's a really cool." I'm like, I don't know anything about it. I just think it looks cool, so we're just gonna pick that up. But so yeah, no, it's but it definitely does help having like when I was doing the animations for like the mare's leg and stuff like that. I have never before last weekend I didn't own a mare's leg, and so like I would use like YouTube channels like Hickok, people who just like show these guns off to kind of learn how they work, and then some of them that are available in hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades in VR. I would just go mess with them in VR to kind of learn like how to reload them and how they kind of like feel to hold and stuff, and that kind of guy, like stuff like the Sten and the C96, which I've never personally fired. Having those references to like how does it how do you get the magazine and how much force does it take? What kind of sounds does it make and stuff like that was all of that was kind of guided by watching videos like that, and then like playing Hot Dogs, which is a phenomenal game in its own right. If you have VR and you're a gun person, like that's a Hot Dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades is great. Not to draw attention away from CULTIC here, but if you haven't played that, you probably should. It's great.
It's interesting. I'm just trying to think of like how all the all of our European and urban friends are going to react to hearing all this. Yeah, I just walked into a store, bought a gun because I thought it looked cool. Like that's unimaginable to a lot of people. But
yeah,
I grew up.
In case we didn't mention, I'm from America, from the Midwest, from Kansas. So guns are pretty big deal. And like I said, I'm not really a hunter or anything because I'm too squeamish and too much of an animal guy to hunt. But I hunt soda cans, old milk jugs full of water. Anything I can put on a fence and knock down, stuff like that. Carve pumpkins with a shotgun every year on Halloween time. So.
Sounds like you're a real danger to society.
Oh yeah, big time. But it is fun in the 3D Realms Discord every time I share like, oh, I just bought this, and everyone's like, huh, what? So it's but it's fun. Sometimes I forget that's such a weird thing, outside of the United States, just be like, yeah, I'm just gonna go to a gun show today, and it'll be a good time. It'll be fun.
I was gonna mention like I'm from South Alabama, so. Literally, I knew how to fire a gun before I knew how to tie my own shoes. Like that, that was just kind of part of the culture. Like, it was part of being a young boy. Is like, well, you better learn how to shoot a gun, son. Okay, thanks, Dad. And I'm not nearly as like into it now that I'm an adult. I guess maybe because I just was always around it as a kid. It's not special to me. It's not like there's no era of fascination. But I definitely always loved gun culture. Hunting was big for us, like a turkey hunt, dove hunting every year, deer hunting. I was never big into the deer hunting, but I did kill my first deer when I was like 8 years old.
Honestly, I'm in like a unique spot because I really enjoy shooting, and I really enjoy venison and deer jerky, but I am entirely too squeamish to do it myself. I'm a big animal person. Before COVID, I volunteered at like the local shelter a lot. Really love animals, but I'm also incredibly like squeamish, and so that just probably wasn't ever going to work out in my favor.
Plus, wait till you get hungry.
That's right.
I'm desperate.
No. Oh, so luckily, hungry and desperate is just when that's when I open up Eat Street. So it's easy peasy.
Yeah, it's a big part of the game though, and there's certain people who really take care. Like I'm thinking of like Gloomwood, they took a lot of care to make sure the guns were like super accurate and everything. Whereas most games are just like shotgun, assault rifle, like whatever. You're definitely putting a lot into this, and it was is this just like kind of stuff you know through your own fascination, or are you doing research? Or
So I'm still learning, and I still get stuff wrong. I had somebody point out that my Sten reload at this time is actually inaccurate. I think the Sten reload has a bolt hold open, and if I'm using wrong terms here, I just started my gun collection like a year ago, so I'm still learning. But so I have it when the Sten, if you run the Sten completely dry, instead of just swapping the magazine, you actually swap the mag, and then you have to charge the bolt. And somebody pointed out that I guess when a Sten runs dry, the bolt is actually held open, and so you just have to release it. So I need to A, go verify that, and then B, maybe fix my animation, because like I'm not like trying to be super accurate about everything, just because like there's got to be like that gap between, you know, this isn't a realistic game. You know, your character can jump like 8 feet straight up in the air and soak down shotgun blast to the face. So like it's not gonna be super realistic, but you know, some people take the gun thing seriously, and if it's easy enough thing for me to change this early in development, I may as well. But no, I grew up mostly just thinking guns were really cool from video games. You know, playing just everything from, you know, I started out just playing, you know, like Super Metroid and Zelda on the Super Nintendo. But as we got into like the PlayStation era, getting to play like Medal of Honor and mess around with all of those World War II weapons, and then, you know, and then like Metal Gear Solid was really cool. One of the games I played a ton growing up, Metal Gear Solid 3 especially. And so I've always thought that like guns were neat. I had a ton of toy guns, so I go play pretend outside with my friends all the time. I actually had a cop stop me one time as a kid because I had this black Beretta, just toy gun. It was just a little like click. You just click the trigger and that's all. It didn't do anything. But the orange safety cap had fallen off of it, and so it looked very realistic. And so when I was like 10 or 8 years old, I was probably 8. It was like third grade. Anyway, it was a long time ago. I was out front playing with a friend of mine from the neighborhood, and we were just playing some pretend cops and robbers kind of thing. And I had that gun, and the police officer like stopped and like turned his lights on, and I was like, I'm gonna get grounded. This is it. This is it. And then he's just like, what you got there? And I was like, it's just a toy. And he's like, okay, well, it looks pretty realistic. And then I told my parents about it, and they had no idea the orange cap fell off, and they were mortified. So that was it. But anyway, so as I got into like middle school, high school, I actually made some friends because I moved to kind of a more rural area, and so I made some friends who had farms, and they had shotguns and 22s, and so I got to go shoot for the first time like actual guns, and I was like, oh, this is pretty fun. And then, you know, I lived in town, so it wasn't anything I was going to be able to do myself. So it's so anyway, so then finally as an adult, I'm able to I'm just now kind of at the point where I have the disposable income to start up my gun collection. And so it's turning into something I'm trying to learn more about it. I get stuff wrong. You know, I'm not a professional. I feel like I don't mix up clip or magazine anymore, even in the more the cases that are a little more distinct, like, you know, M1 Garands, you know, clip versus magazine on those. But that used to be something I would just call everything a clip. And my friend, who is very knowledgeable on guns, would always just like cringe and then get mad at me and then correct me. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Every game I've ever played ever has called it a clip. Doom called them clips. This is where I learned from. All right.
it's one of those things where it's like, you know, do we really have to get into this debate about it? Kind of like, but yeah, everybody's got their thing. Every like purist has got their like, well, that's the mark of a noob kind of nomenclature. Like, oh yeah, you're a metal guy, and you don't like, oh, you don't know who. Exactly. I don't know, name some weird like Scandinavian, no one ever heard of them, black metal band, and then, oh, you're not a real metalhead if you don't know who they are. Loser.
I used to get really annoyed when my buddy would correct me on it, but now I think I'm becoming that guy a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to stop myself, but like, you know, like my friends will be like, oh man, this like that gun. Like I just bought I bought an M1600 recently, which is like a 22 rifle pretending to be an M16, and I was showing them the magazine looks like a 5.56 magazine until you pull it out, and then it just like tapers down to a little 22 mag. And, you know, just like showed it to my friends, and somebody immediately was like, I was like, oh, it's got a really small clip in there. I'm just like, yep, it sure does. Like, I don't want to be that guy. That guy annoyed me when I was younger. But I also understand that it's a lot more important to some people than it is for me. And so like if there's a small niche part of the market where like firearm accuracy is important to them and it's easy, I mean, all I have to do is remove a couple of frames from the animation and redo the sound effect, and then it's you know, accurate. So stuff like that, you know, if it makes some people happy, they may as well add it. You know, it doesn't really hurt anybody. And I try to take that philosophy with game design in general. because I know that there's like little things that make a big difference to me. And so like, you know, I've only like released a few games, and they're all just like little game jam games. But I really tried to cater to, you know, someone I don't use invert Y axis. I never have. But like I released a little just demo game one time, and somebody was like, I can't play this without invert Y, and I was like, well, I can add that. That's just a toggle and a negative sign. So I just like threw that in there real quick because like it's important to somebody. And so, you know, it's one of those things that I don't want to, you know. I don't want to offend anybody by, you know, pretending that I'm like, oh, look at all these authentic guns I added to the game, and then I completely screw something up about them. But the capacities are not going to be realistic because that's just something we're going to have to deal with. But like I've upped the Sten magazine's capacity a couple of times because the default capacity for them just like didn't feel, you would only mow down a few enemies and have to reload, and that doesn't feel good at all. But I also really enjoy reloading as a game mechanic versus like, you know, games like Doom or like Blood where you could fire infinitely, into your ammo pool rather. And so it's just kind of like striking a balance there where it's fun but not, you know, super realistic. And that's something you learn from playing Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades is how difficult it is. I'm not going to plug that game all night, but how difficult it is to reload guns in duress. It's especially funny when you're playing like VR games with like a group of friends and you're like casting it to the TV, and like in the VR headset, you're like under fire and you're like crouched behind cover and you're like trying to like reload your shotgun. And to you, it's all very intense and all very cool. But to your friends who are just watching you on TV, you're just like huddled over in the corner, making little motions with your VR controllers. And it's just hilarious. But yeah, it's like you get to learn how difficult like reloading under duress is. And that's one of those things like is it realistic? Sure. Is it fun? So. It can be frustrating. So, anyway, again, I mean, kind of getting off a tangent.
I feel like it's more difficult probably to do it in VR than it is to do it in real life.
Definitely. Yeah. You don't have that feedback of like physical collisions and whatnot.
I was just watching.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, plus in real life, if you miss the mag well just a little bit, it'll usually just slide in. Whereas in a game with a physics engine, it starts to just kind of freak out and go all over the place. So it's a big difference.
I was watching The Army of Darkness yesterday with some friends, and you know, there's a lot of goofy stuff, but there's several scenes in that movie where Ash does these very unrealistic double barrel shotgun reloads, right? Where it's like he just fired 3 rounds. I swear he did. And they're like, well, they in the cut, like literally, if you pay attention in the cut, they like edited in like the sound of a reload, so they never have to show I'm doing it. But it reminded me of when I was probably like 18 or something like that. I was getting into, I wanted to be a pro wrestler really bad, so I had this trainer, and we were kind of talking about the suspension of disbelief involved in pro wrestling and, you know, magic and cinema and all this stuff. And you're just like, you know, when you watch a movie and you know, this revolver they're shooting has 6 rounds, but they keep shooting, you know, throughout the whole thing. His philosophy on it was like, that's necessary because it reminds the audience like that this isn't real. You know, this is just make believe. You don't have to take it so fucking seriously. That's what, I don't know why it reminded me of that, but yeah, like that's like, there's a fine line between fun and realistic for sure. Yeah. There's nothing fun about warfare, right? But right. You can make it fun in a video game setting, I guess.
My my girlfriend, I think, has gotten so used to me making those comments during movies where like somebody has obviously fired more rounds than the capacity of that gun, and so we'll be watching something and somebody will be, you know, popping off shots, and then she'll look over and she'll be like, "Would that gun be empty by now?" And I'm like, "Probably." I think one of my favorite instances of like firearm inaccuracy is from The Walking Dead. Actually, there's a scene, and I'm trying to spoil it, although this, you know, this episode would have aired like 8 years ago, so probably should have watched it by now. But there's a scene in one of the seasons where the protagonist Rick has to kill one of his own, like his friends, because they've been bitten and they're going to turn. And for those of you who haven't seen it, Rick's like iconic weapon is I believe it's a python, a Colt python. And I'm gonna look that up right now. So I don't get this wrong. Yeah, okay, it's a Colt Python. So it's this big revolver, right? And so it's this really dramatic, drawn-out scene. This character's been bitten, This is a character that's been with us for many seasons, and they know that like Rick's gonna have to put them down, and so it's like everyone's hugging, saying goodbye, crying, and then Rick dramatically like puts the barrel of the gun up to this character's head, and then like the camera like pans out of the room, and then you just hear the gunshot. But the audio sample that they used for the gunshot is very clearly of a gun firing and then a casing hitting the floor. Which, if it's a revolver, they don't eject casings, because they stay in the cylinder. And so I remember that just like yanking me right out of the moment. I was like, wait a second. And of course, every sane person on the planet just enjoyed the scene for what it was.
There's the possibility that he just, popped open.
That's true. He was so disgusted with casing, that shot, right? He had to immediately eject the casing. You're right. That's probably what happened. I'm gonna need to see the AMC speed edit of Rick shooting and immediately ejecting that casing.
I don't know, it's possible, but yeah, like I really do think that's an interesting topic we can dive a lot into. There's a lot of instances. The Walking Dead, for a good example, one that really pisses me off is the crossbow. Norman Reedus's crossbow always like the bolt stays in the zombie's head, like as if that's what happens, where they just poke you out the other side and stop. Like, no, it would go right through them. I don't think anyone here no one on The Walking Dead has ever actually fired a crossbow, apparently. But
the hard part's over. You're already through the skull. Yeah. There should be nothing stopping it now.
I know. But it's entertainment. It's fun.
Yeah.
And it looks a lot cooler if it's sticking in their head. And then it's much easier for him to go retrieve it and save his bolts. So Zombie Apocalypse has to have some good, some convenience for the sufferers who have to survive through it. Yeah.
That's a funny bit of like of realism. Kind of crosses over to like in Blood, your pistol in that game was a flare gun, a single shot flare gun. That reminded me one of the things so my friends and I will come over. We play hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. This is the last time I'm going to plug it, I think. And we'll just like
what game is it you're designing again?
This whole thing has been an elaborate marketing ruse for hot dogs. That's it. The entire Cultic arsenal is actually in hot dogs. So I did a Cultic run the other day. It was really fun. But anyway, we'll set up the arena and we'll just like spawn a gun loadout that we think is ridiculous, and we'll just like we'll take turns putting on the headset and see who can go the longest with that loadout. And I think my favorite one was my buddy. In hot dogs, you have like body holster slots that you can like stick guns to, and you can, so instead of an inventory, you have like a physical like loadout that you can pull things off your body. And he spawned in like 8 single shot 12 gauge flare guns, which you can put a single shotgun shell, and then you have to crack it open, dump the shell out, put a new shell in, and then close it, and then cock it, and then you can fire it again. And he just like spawned 8 of those and strapped them to his chest. And those, he like pulls them out and takes one shot and then throws it, and pulls another out and takes a shot and then throws it. And then between each wave, he's going around and frantically picking all the guns back up and trying to quickly reload them all. And it was so good. It's just like stuff like that. It's so funny because you don't think about it when you watch like an action movie. Not that there's any action movies of somebody using a single shot flare gun to fire shotgun shells, or if there is, I haven't seen it and I need to. But
that's like kind of so crazily stupid that it derailed my ability to interview.
Cultic, crazily stupid. First review. There it is.
No, it's cool. With Cultic, let's just try to get back into Cultic again.
Okay.
I guess a little bit. Do you feel like there's any particular mechanic or thing about the gameplay that will make it stand out from all the other boomer shooters that are now on the market, or just even the classics? Like, what makes it different from Blood for the player?
Yeah, that's it's something I've thought a lot about. I got to say, like, the biggest thing, if I had to like pick one phrase to describe what my life has been like since 3D Realms reached out to me, it's imposter syndrome. I now that I've started to kind of expand on Twitter, I've started to connect with and follow more and more people who are also working on boomer shooters, and I see so many projects that just look phenomenal. And it makes me just be like, wow, like Cultic cannot stack up to these. So I try to think in that terms, like, okay, like what am I going to bring to the market? And so one thing that I think I have going for me that's unique is the entire artistic style of Cultic, from the art to the sound design, is that everything is kind of there to emulate like the older era of video games. Where they were working with technical limitations, whether that's poly counts or or number of instances on screen or color counts, And so like you've got the color palette that everything kind of works with, and that color palette isn't just like it's not just like a lazy conversion where I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to take this photo and convert it into this color, because with that many colors, you have to start designing things differently. Like the demo level for CULTIC, which at this time of recording will be available, or at the time of this airs. I have to make sure that like I do a color distinction between the ground and the walls, otherwise they all blend together, because this game doesn't use like realistic lighting. And so, a lot of like the wall design, I lean towards blues, like blues and yellows. And then the ground is all like browns and reds. And so it creates a very distinct contrast between the two. So it's not just like, there was this point when indie pixel games were super duper popular, like a handful of years back, and it kind of spawned. There were some games that did it really, really well, and then there were some games where it was just like, oh, I'm just going to make all of my characters like 16 pixels tall, and they're going to have 1 pixel thick limbs, and that's me doing the art style. Like I did it, I made the aesthetic, and that's like it's missing the point entirely of what makes pixel art work well,
Mm-hmm.
And so this is kind of one of those things. I feel like CULTIC takes the limitations that it's trying to emulate, but still uses it takes advantage of Unity as a modern game engine to still present something that is like aesthetically pleasing. So I still do make effect of in-game lighting. It's not like super realistic, real time with real time shadows and stuff, but there's baked in lighting and a little bit of like ambient occlusion to soften and darken up some edges around objects. There's a little bit of bloom going on to kind of which actually has a really interesting effect when you combine it with like the color palette. But then also like the audio is all bit crushed. But it's not just lazily bit crushed. I don't just throw it through a filter and call it a day. I design the sounds first as full high fidelity sound effects,
Mm-hmm.
and then I go through and I bit crush them. But then I take that bit crush sample and I go back and I tweak all the frequencies on it so that it's still a punchy sound. It's still a crispy sound. It's not just something that gets lost in the bit crushing. So it's like you take what makes the aesthetic work, just like that crunchiness, but then you still kind of make it appealing to modern day players. And then like the soundtrack for CULTIC is partially composed of a custom sound font that I put together, where I took high quality orchestral samples and whatnot and did the same thing, processed took the high fidelity samples, bit crushed them, adjusted all the frequencies manually, kind of mastered them, and then built them into a custom sound font. So that's so that's kind of emulating like a MIDI sound font based soundtrack. If you didn't have the CD audio, for your game, you'd use the MIDI soundtrack, and so it's kind of again that emulating the MIDI, but still making it sound good, so it can be enjoyable for modern audience. So I'd say that's one of the big strengths of it, is just like the experience, or like the aesthetics overall. Is very much designed to be like nostalgic and kind of present this like retro experience. But then it is also still, I put a lot of time and a lot of love into it. I still want it to look good and look cohesive. And so that's one point. And the second is just like that. And again, since people will be playing the demo at this time, maybe they'll completely prove me wrong on this. But I just think it's the gameplay is just really, really fun, which is probably a really vague and stupid thing to say about the game.
But why?
But like it's
what about it?
The difficulty is like, I don't know if you ever played Stalker on like the hardest difficulty, but like Stalker was interesting because like on the easier difficulties, you're spongy, but so are the enemies. It's like damage just gets scaled down, and on the high difficulties, you can get killed in 2 shots, but so can the enemies. And I lean into that kind of thing a little bit with CULTIC, where like most of the enemies can be taken down with a well-placed shotgun blast or a few shots from afar. They're not like crazy spongy like looter shooter enemies. But at the same time, if you walk out into a wide open arena, you'll get torn to pieces as well. So it kind of has that more brutal difficulty that like Doom 2016 was popularizing, where you have to stay on your feet, you have to take advantage of the environment, or enemies will just tear you apart. And so CULTIC's the same way, So it's the gameplay can be very fast paced, or you can run around and slide around and hop between cover and destroy enemies, or you can do it methodically. You can scope out most areas before you walk in, and get some dynamite in play before the enemies even see you, and then get a couple of well-placed magnum shots to pick a firearm wielding enemy off from distance, and you can kind of take care of those combat scenarios how you choose. And so I think that's one of the strengths it has for the gameplay is it's not all just you get chucked into an arena, 15 monster closets open up, and you're just just like have fun. So I think that's another strength that has going for it. It's just like that just very quick, like enemies can blow you up in a second, and you can blow them up in a second. And so it's not it's not as brutal as why can I not think of any names today? Hotline Miami, where it's like stay on your feet, one mistake you're dead. It's not quite like that.
Ghost Runner.
Yeah, that's the other one I was trying to think of. But yeah, I think that's something people are really going to enjoy too. But I think so far, it's especially the thing that really seems to resonate with folks on Twitter is it's just the art style and the overall aesthetic.
That's all they've seen so far too. Is that all they know is the art style? Yeah,
that's true.
But as of today,
yeah. But there's a lot of stuff I'm really hoping we'll be able to get into the game. Like I really, really, really want to add co-op. The disclaimer: this is not a promise that co-op is coming, but I think that like co-op easily doubles the playability of a game or the the playtime of a game. And maybe I'm biased because all my buddies are great to play co-op with. So, but the entire game is being coded right now with co-op in mind. And so all of the enemies are coded to assume that there could be more than one player at any time. A lot of the player data storage and save storage is all based on the assumption that there can be more than one player at any given time. And so I'm really excited to hopefully bring that to the game in the future. But networking is also super duper tough, and I've never released a multiplayer game before. So I think that'll be another thing that'll be really unique is just I know that's something that people clamor for Dusk a lot, and I've seen talk about Dusk multiplayer or co-op rather, Dusk co-op win.
Dusk has a an arena FPS
right
in Dusk World, and
right.
The In the Keep community was way behind that. We put on a tournament, even though there's no first person follow camera, we still did it anyway with because we could. Mm-hmm. And there were some fantastic players like Brondo or Ceasepool, Brandflakes, really, really great players of this game, but just the development wasn't really behind it. It was never going to be this epic PvP game. But I mean, co-op would be so good. You know, and I think, as you said, co-op really can extend the playtime, or even convince someone to play that otherwise wouldn't. Right. Yeah. So you could make a lot of sales just simply on the fact, oh, come on, man. Well, you don't have to play it by yourself, but we'll do it together. It'll be a fun weekend, and that's huge. Definitely. I've done a lot of games like that with my friends. The first time I played Bloodborne, I was way too big of a pussy to play that game by myself. My friend was like, well, I'll walk you through it. Okay, let's go. And I had a great time. Huge.
Yeah, I've always wanted to make a good just a good co-op game, because I find I'm that guy who I'm not that guy who leaves it in reviews, but I'm that guy who every time I play a game I really like, I'm like, if only it were co-op, if only there were two people in here. And so being in the position where I could make that happen is exciting. And so I've designing some of the items in the game are designed with co-op in mind, the field kit, kind of the CULTIC's doctor's bag from Blood, is set up in a way where you use it continuously. So as long as you hold down the use key, you're slowly patching yourself up with it. So if if you're close to the end of the level, you might just give yourself 20 hit points to get yourself through the end, or you can hold down enter and use up the entire thing at once. And so that's the main reason I wanted to put it together that way is I really wanted you to have the ability that when you go to revive a co-op partner that's gone down, mm-hmm. you kind of have the option of how much leeway are you going to give them when they get back up? Are you going to give them a pat on the ass and tell them to get back into action, or are you actually going to give them 50 HP to work with when they get back up, that kind of thing. And so I'm really hoping that that'll be something I can add. Again, this is not a guarantee, but that's something that I've had my eyes on from the beginning. So I'm really hoping I can make that a thing, but we'll have to see.
Well, something you said earlier that really kind of stuck with me and that I wanted to explore a bit more was about how Doom 2016, and I would say far more so Doom Eternal, they do really force you to play the game the way that they want you to play it, which is not a bad thing necessarily, For me, it wasn't my favorite thing because like I'm a fan of classic Doom, and you mentioned this a bit about how you can kind of choose how you interact. I mean, if you've ever
Uh-huh.
seen like a Decino, I'm not sure if you're aware of him, but he's
I am.
yeah, like
Yep.
the way that he plays Doom, playing a slaughter map, and you never fire a shot, you just like bob and weave
Uh-huh.
through all the enemies, like float like a butterfly, sting like a bee kind of thing, and make them all infight and everything. And that's like 90% of the fun of Doom to a lot of people. And removing that aspect of it, I felt like rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Me being one of them, not that I didn't like the game, it just wasn't my favorite Doom game
Right.
for sure. And I think it's really cool that you're making a point to allow freedom for the player, because that's what games are. That's what makes games fun for me. Is that I can play around with them. It's playing. It's not even if it's not a simulation of something happens in real life. It's a simulation of like, do exactly what I want you to do. I mean, I might as well just be playing a game that requires me to push the forward button and progress.
Yeah.
I
No,
mean,
I'm
Doom
actually.
Eternal has a lot of skill to it. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah, yeah. I'm actually really glad you said that, because I have very strong opinions in that arena as it pertains to Doom Eternal. So first of all, I'll start this with CULTIC has infighting. So don't worry about that. CULTIC has infighting. Actually, the last game I worked on before this was a little arena, or a little roguelite called Unholy Commotion, and it was kind of a goofy, just comical little. Just like a kind of a cute 'em up. It was just like a little cartoony shooter. But one of the items you could buy
did
from
you
the
just say
item shop.
cute 'em up?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Uh,
I
that's not my term. Somebody referred to my game as that, and I loved it, so I'm sticking with it.
who if you can figure out who said that, I want the rights to that. That's
But anyway, one of the items you could buy from the shop was called. So it was you versus skeletons. All the enemies were skeletons. It was like you were like underground in these like crypts, trying to destroy this underground undead army that was like basically ruining your ability to sleep. So they were just too loud, and you played as a guy in his pajamas going around killing all these skeletons. But anyway, so one of the items you could get was called a propaganda T-shirt, and it was like a picture of like a skull, like making like the thinking face, and it said, "Can you really trust the undead?" And if you bought that item, it doubled the enemy's chance to infight with each other if they shot each other. So it's like a 10% chance to infight, and you could double it all the way up to 50% total. So you can make it so that if an enemy hit another enemy, they had a 1 in 2 chance of turning on each other. So infighting is just always hilarious. And there was even a bug at one point. That game also had a C96 in it, and after you reloaded it, your character would flick the stripper clip off of the top, and that stripper clip was a 1 damage projectile. And there was a bug in the game for a while where enemies could infight with that stripper clip, because any entity that as an actor in the game has a team ID. And there's a value you can set it to, like -1, to make enemies ignore it. But otherwise, it's like team 0 is the player, team 1 is enemies, and then team 2 is like another team. And so enemies would use who attacked them and their team ID to decide how they would calculate infighting. But anyway, so I forgot to set the stripper clip to 0 or to -1. And so it was still set to the enemy projectile, which was 1. And so enemies would sometimes get hit with that stripper clip, and they would turn on it. Like they would be like, son of a bitch. And they would go and they would just attack that stripper clip that was laying on the floor. And I didn't figure it out until I recorded a video of a boss fight. It's just this giant skeleton who has this huge like dinosaur jawbone sword that he carries around. And I reloaded the C96 and flicked the clip out and hit him. And you just see his big head just like look down at it, because their heads do tracking. And he just walks over and starts beating the crap out of the stripper clip. It was incredible. But anyway, so Doom 2016 versus Doom Eternal, and like forcing the player to play a certain way. I loved Doom 2016. I thought that, despite the fact that it was in some ways like an arena shooter, you had like very specifically designed like areas within to fight. The way, like with all the different weapons and all the different mods, and the fact that you could get like scopes for some guns, and it like really set up a kind of a minimal way of players to play how they wanted. So like you could go, all in and just like blast everything and just, use your chainsaw to recoup ammo when you needed it. Or there were upgrades that you could do to just be more precise.
And
like
in that game, the upgrade system allowed you to choose your path. Like, these are the weapons I like,
Right.
and this is how I want to use
right.
them. Yeah.
And so I love 2016, so I bought Doom Eternal on launch day, just like right away. No questions asked.
I pre-ordered it.
Yeah, yep. And I was really disappointed, which sucks, because like like audio and graphics wise, the game is gorgeous. The soundtrack's incredible. The audio design is great. But like I remember like my heart sinking into my stomach when I like walked into the first level and saw a glowing gun rotating on the ground instead of being like clutched in a dead Marine's hands, you know. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a different game. And then when the Arachnotron first came in, and it was like, oh, the game says you can hit its weak point, and I was like, well, okay, I'll keep that in mind. I didn't realize that meant you have to hit its weak point.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
if you don't take out the turret, you will die. Also, if you just try to shoot it and it's not weak point, you'll run out of ammo like immediately.
Yep.
And I was like, ooh, like I don't really like that. But you know, I was like, well, I'll try to go with it, and I tried to work around it. But it's like, no, like you have to play that way. You have to play the way the game. And like you said, there is a lot of skill involved. I was playing on normal and getting my ass kicked a lot because I kept running out of ammo. And I
jumped straight in on ultra violence.
Oh God.
Yeah. Because like, you know, I've been playing Doom for a long time. This will be fun, you know.
Yeah. But like, I never used my chainsaw in Doom 2016 because I'm a hoarder in games like Skyrim. I never use my potions. I have a million of them. I never use them. What if I need them later? And that's always my mindset with like the chainsaw fuel. What if I need it later? So I would only use it in really sticky situations where like, crap, this gun's empty. I'm almost dead, and I've got an imp in my face or a Hell Knight in my face.
Right.
Oh, okay. Now I'm going to use the chainsaw. But in Doom Eternal, it's like if you want to play the game, you have to use the chainsaw. Like the gameplay is now designed around it, which for some people worked. Like some people that really clicked with them. It just didn't for me. And it reminded me of like Hitman Absolution was the last time I felt that big letdown where they're like, it's like the biggest Hitman game to date. Play the game how you want. Like be ruthless, go in guns blazing, or be a master assassin. I was like, okay. And so I run in first time. I'm like, oh, guns blazing, 100%. And so I go and I do the first mission. I just like run straight to the target, blow them away, and then just like sprint out of there. And the game's like, okay, you did it, but you don't get any points, which you need to upgrade your stuff, like your skills and everything and your weapons. Here's how you get points. You have to play it the stealthy way. And I was like, okay, so you can't play how you want then. That was a lie. It's like, okay, if you want to upgrade these skills, you have to do everything silently. You have to not get detected. You have to use this silenced weapon. And I was like, okay, so I can't actually play it the way I want. And so that's one thing I'm really trying to avoid, like in CULTIC. So far in the levels I've worked on, it's all of the combat spaces are fairly wide open. There's a lot of places you can take cover. I try to make sure there's like high vantage points. And then the enemies are spaced out enough, and the enemy attacks aren't hit scan. So if you stay on your feet and you use your dodge and your slide, you can usually avoid enemy attacks. It's one of my favorite things about the gameplay design, or rather the enemy design, is all of the enemies have an audible telegraph before they start shooting. With you just hear like the gun like click into position. Or you hear them like raise the shotgun, and then like half a second after that they start shooting, and that's just enough time for you to like dodge behind cover or like do a slide to get out of harm's way. And so it does allow you, if you want to go in guns blazing and you can recognize all of those audio cues, you'll probably be okay. And then like the armor system in the game is designed to give players flexibility too. Like if you see an encounter and you really just want to run in there with a shotgun and you've got 50 points of ballistic armor left, go for it. Those enemy shots aren't going to do anything to you they won't do much to you until your armor breaks. And so I'm really trying to like just work on that player freedom to approach the game how they want. And to be fair, there isn't like a strict, there's no like strict stealth option. There's no like stealth kills or enemy detection meters. But you still can set up an encounter before you piss everybody off. You can throw dynamite unlit. So you can throw unlit dynamite into the arena to have like, things that you can shoot to blow up. And so you can chain those together. So if you get the drop on a group of enemies, you can throw TNT, and if they're close enough, they'll chain react each other, and you can end the encounter before anybody knows you're even there. So stuff like that I think is really gonna make some of those situations fun. And so yeah, I think the original question was how is CULTIC going to stand out, and then we started talking about Doom Eternal. But I think that's one of the things that'll work in its favor. But again, as people are watching this and this is airing right now, hopefully a bunch of folks are playing the demo and kind of telling us how they feel about it. So we'll kind of get to be able to dial in on people's expectations and tune things to where it's hopefully fun for the most people.
So this is the hard part. This is the part where we have to like really dive deep, and I need to know what you feel about aliens.
About aliens?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that there's definitely life out there somewhere. Like the fact, only Earth ever being a planet that develops like life, I think is really, really unlikely. However, I would imagine that any species out there that's more advanced than us and knows we're here has probably looked at our planet and been like, "I'm not going there. Absolutely not. Nope." So. But it's really an interesting thing. I'm not like a big UFO person, but every time I hear news about UFOs, I get really excited because I'm just like, oh man, is this it? Like, I'm not expecting the Mars rover to find anything like super out of the ordinary, and like them finding like evidence of water on Mars is always cool. But like, if they said like, hey, we just found a little village on Mars, I'd be like, oh man, here we go. This is it. So that's kind of where I stand on it. I like X-Files too. So
yeah, I love the X-Files. I guess for the reason why I'm asking, really, first of all, it's a great conversation piece, but second of all, because your game deals with cults and it deals with conspiracy and things like that, and this is like the greatest example of one of them to me. Is we were talking off air about the government trying to keep secrets from people, and this is the greatest one because it's like, well, the easier argument is like, okay, they couldn't keep Bill Clinton's dick, a secret, right?
How are they going to?
How are they going to keep aliens a secret? And it's like the natural argument is like, but they haven't kept it a secret. People have been talking about it. They haven't even tried to stop Navy pilots from talking about it. And then people just assume they're crazy, and they assume that anybody who believes them is crazy. So it's like a self-fulfilling defense policy. Like we don't even have to cover it up. We just have to like divert the media to kind of ignore it a bit or distract from it. Right. Let's pass that bill we've been talking about for a while. And I suspect that whenever they're talking about right now, they're like, the Navy is going to go forward to Congress and talk about aliens, or I should say they're going to talk about UFOs. They're not saying aliens, which is fine. That makes sense. But then when they do, I bet you that's like, that'd be like the greatest moment to like, let's pass that marijuana bill, or whatever, like just distract the public. Like,
and then the UFO sightings triple.
Yes, exactly. I don't know why, but it's so, I'm more fascinated, honestly, by the tendency of the human brain to self-justify a conspiracy than I am by whether or not there's aliens like orbiting our planet or whatever. You know what I mean? And that's so cool. I mean, I know your game's not like fully fledged out like story wise and everything, but it's just one of those deep psychological things about humans that infinitely fascinates me. Is this tendency towards cult behavior and conspiracy behavior. And so with the cult in your game, I am curious, is there, you mentioned that like they're trying to resurrect some sort of like kind of Lovecraftian entity, God kind of thing. Do you have an idea of what that might be or what the origin story might be from that?
So the this might just kind of be like a lazy way to not have to like design, like an actual physical entity, but this force from I'm trying not to like give like too much away and also not talk about things that aren't decided, but I was really inspired by Gygus from Earthbound. I don't know if you've heard Earthbound, but Gygus was like this really, really freaky boss to me because I played the game as a kid. And that boss fight terrified me because it was just like the game won't tell me what he looks like, and so it's just one of those things where like your mind fills in the blanks, which is like the best kind of horror in my opinion. I remember watching, oh gosh, I can't remember what it was. It's probably good because I'm not going to spoil it. But I went to see Quiet Place 2 in theaters recently, and there was a trailer for another horror movie, and they revealed the monster, like they showed the creature in the trailer.
I hate it.
And it was so dumb because they spent the entire trailer like dodging it, like it was in the shadows, it was clambering away, and then at the very end they just like did that end of the trailer jump scare and they showed it clear as day, and I'm like, why would you do that? Like, what point is there to go see the movie now? And so it's one of those things where like not knowing sometimes makes it more scary because your mind fills in the blanks. It's why watching, like if I check on my home security cameras at night when they're in night vision mode, I scare myself all the time because I'm like, oh my god, what was that? it was a bug. It is a bug every time. But and so this force from below, from the beneath, what I'm kind of calling it right now, in a not so subtle nod to like Stranger Things, is that this isn't like a creature so much as it is just like a force, like just like a power. And so I don't know that I don't know that the player. What I'm really excited about with writing this lore and with kind of putting the story together is that you don't necessarily ever see what this force is, more so than you see what it does to people. Like you see what it does to enemies. You see like what it does when it possesses human forms and mutates human forms. And so a lot of ways it'll be like necromorphs in Dead Space, where like the necromorph has like the hive mind and everything, but like they're mainly just like this parasitic like spore, like this microorganism that morphs the host as opposed to like having its own form. And Dead Space purists who know way more about the lore than I do, like don't crucify me for this. I'm going off for the first 3 games here, but it's one of those things where like the player is contending with this thing that's not like a physical being that they can just walk up and shoot, right? It's this unholy force that's kind of seeped in through this crack between dimensions that they've opened up. And so the player's goal isn't so much to like kill it as much as it is to like close the door. Right. And so one thing I'm really excited about is designing the beneath, what I'm calling it, and is because the player is going to go there eventually. The player is going to spend at least a couple of maps like trapped in the beneath, and it's going to be I have no idea what that's going to look like yet. I have some images in my head. I have some ideas of how I want to do it, but like I'm super excited to put it together because like horror is like my favorite genre by far, and like audio design and stuff like that is my favorite, and so I'm really excited to kind of start putting that together. But yeah, so a lot of the foes that you're going to fight in this game are going to be people who open themselves up to the influence of this power, and creatures that it tried to take over unwillingly, and that kind of results in more of like a mutation where they can't work with the host as it naturally is because they're unwilling, and so it kind of morphs their body to suit its needs instead. So the player will have to contend with more than just cultists, and so that's kind of what I'm rolling towards here.
Do you have plans for like how you're going to set the atmosphere for like, so for instance, like do you have a soundtrack kind of idea laid out, or is it already there?
Yeah, there's actually a handful of tracks that I've already released. So you can, if you poke through my Twitter or hop on my SoundCloud, you can actually listen to them. But it's a very like gothic orchestral. So it's got a lot of like tubular bells, cellos, a little bit of brass here and there, but it's very gothic orchestral, and then it's got some influence of like just like retro shooter soundtrack in there too. So you've got like a tiny dose of like electronic influence in some of the combat tracks, a little bit of rock, a little bit of guitar and drum action going on. So and it's kind of hard to describe, but if you listen to it, and then also just like the crunchiness of it, like the bit crushed instruments, and then like my custom sound font, the strings all have like a little bit of like detuning to them, so everything kind of has like an uneasy like wail to it as well. And so that's for like the actual score, for the actual soundtrack. That's kind of the feel I'm going for. Much easier to explain just listening to it than trying to like put it into words. But yeah,
are you composing this yourself?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So do you have a musical background prior to game dev, or?
Kind of alongside it. When I first started doing game development, I was like, oh, I'm going to write my own music. And so I downloaded, oh gosh, I can't remember what it was called. It was some just MIDI composer. And I was terrible. I hadn't had a day of musical training. I couldn't read sheet music. But now in 2021, I haven't had a day of musical training. I can't read sheet music, but I've gotten a lot better at writing things that sound good. At least I think so. Yeah. And so, yeah, not necessarily any like formal training or college experience or anything like that, but just really just wanting to put tunes together that sound good, that are probably full of like absolute like musical sins that actual composers would probably just like shake their heads at. But I think it sounds good. So that's what I'm going with.
That's a big endeavor, man. I would be terrified to be releasing a game working in the same company as Michael Markey, you know.
Yeah, that's every now and again. Every now and again, when I release a track or share a sample of something on the Discord, Fred will make some kind of comment about like, "Uh-oh, look out, Marky." And I'm like, "Please stop. He is 20 times the composer I will ever be. Let's not even go there." So, but no, that's imposter syndrome again. Like that was the first. I'm like, "Oh, cool. He's also in this Discord. That's great. that's going to make me feel really good about my soundtrack." But yeah, I would say I can shoot you a link here when we're done and kind of show you. Actually, I think there's even a chat here. I can just drop it in. I see on the side of our little.
Just shoot it through Discord to be easier.
Oh, okay. I can do that too.
It'll be in my inbox when we log out of this. So
gotcha. But yeah, no, this is it is. Yeah, I am composing pretty much like right now. If I were to release CULTIC right now, the credits would just say everything me. So I'm kind of a control freak, and so I have a tendency to just like want to do everything myself and be kind of a one-man army. But working with 3D Realms has kind of given me a unique opportunity to actually kind of accept help from others. And, like all the resources and all the phenomenal map designers and level designers that are on that team that I'm going to be able to work with is super exciting. A little scary because I'm so used to doing everything myself. And so like kind of releasing some of that control is really hard for me to do, but I recognize that it needs to be done to make CULTIC like the best game it can be. Because there's people, there's folks out there that just do things better than I do. And I have those resources available, may as well leverage them. So I'm really excited to work with some of the really talented folks at 3D Realms but it's tough. It's my baby, it's my project. And so letting other people work on it is kind of, it's something I'm getting used to. It's definitely taking getting used to. Now I can be a really bad control freak, but that's a flaw. So, it's something I should work on. So it's a beautiful thing now that I'm letting other folks help with the game. But
let's see if this works. It might not sound so great through the recording, but is it coming through? Oh yeah, it's working.
So this track you're hearing right now is called Unstoppable, and it's actually going to play on the first level during a particularly large firefight.
That sounds like kind of derivative of something that I know. There's like a movie soundtrack that's like almost directly derivative of. I swear.
Oh God, I hope not. I wasn't trying to copy anything.
I didn't mean to out you right here. No. It's like from a Quentin Tarantino movie. I swear. I'll figure it out after the podcast and I'll shoot it to you. It sounds great. Like it's really cool, and I think it's cool to be a derivative and like remind players. Like
sounds like CULTIC is going to be canceled by a lawsuit here very soon. So look out for that.
It sounds really cool, man. It's got a very different kind of, almost like it's behind a wall. You know what I mean? Like it's like not quite all the way there at that point in the song. At least it's like 16 seconds that we listen to, but
yeah. Well, some of that is definitely the bit crushing. And one thing I'm really excited about is I want to release two different versions of the soundtrack, the crispy and the crunchy version. And so I really want to release the soundtrack originally, like as you hear in game with all of the bit crushing and stuff intact. But then I really want to do a remaster soundtrack where I use all of the original orchestral samples and take all of my bit crushing out and master it as like a full orchestral soundtrack, and maybe even offer the option in game to switch between the two, kind of like a modern switching between MIDI and CD audio. So I mean, you already have options in there to adjust the render scale and stuff for your desired level of pixelation. So I mean, I think that'd be a pretty cool option. So maybe we'll have that in game too. But yeah, I'm really, because like a lot of the stuff in the game that is like down resed for stylization. Like all of the enemy models are fully 3D modeled, textured, and rigged. All of the players' first person guns are fully 3D modeled, textured, and rigged. And so like if I wanted to start on CULTIC 2 right now and make it a fully 3D game, I could do that because all the models are there. Same thing with the music. Like all of the original full quality samples are there. They're just being processed into this, this kind of crunchy retro sound. And for some folks, I imagine they would prefer to listen to it originally because some people don't have that same rose tinted glasses feel for older, the older aesthetic. And that's fine. And so if having the CD audio soundtrack, so to speak, helps them enjoy the game more, then I don't see any reason not to include it. So Yeah, there you go. Developing ideas right here on the podcast.
Do you know Proteus?
The project, the shooter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like one of the things that I really like about Proteus is they give all those options to you. You know, like you can play the game in like 2D sprites or you can play it in 3D models. It's up to you, and it's literally just to turn it off or on in the menu. The other thing that they did was they have the fantastic, full on soundtrack, but you also have the option to select the MIDI soundtrack composed by my friend James Paddock, which is amazing. Like it's so cool, and
that is really cool. It makes me wonder if it's like I haven't played Proteus yet.
Play it, dude. Play it. Seriously, grab it. Message Vivi in like one of the chat, like the Realms Deep chat. He'll probably send you a key for it. Like, I'm not kidding.
I can't do that. I have to support them. I have to support my fellow developers.
You support them by talking about them on interviews.
I kind of wonder from like a developer standpoint. Maybe you know this, for switching between like 2D sprites and models. Do they just have two sets of assets, or are those sprites like being rendered in game onto textures? So
I believe they are being rendered. Yeah,
in game.
You'd have to talk. Yeah, I think you'd have to talk to him to really get the full rundown. I just hit my ups with my foot. Yeah, you'd have to talk to him to like fully understand what the hell he's doing, because I'm not. I don't know how to programmer. I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about half the time. I'm just smile and nod. Mm-hmm. Yep, that sounds dope, man. Yeah, I like that. Or if you say a word that sounds familiar to something someone else said, I'm like, yeah, so and so did that too. Or
I'm
shooting from the hip here.
So the thing about, like I said, like ask for a key kind of thing. That was one of the things that blew me away when I first got dropped into this the 3D Realms like team and started like talking
ecosystem.
To everybody. Yeah. Is how many retro shooters and just phenomenal games I am completely behind on. My backlog was terrible before all of this, and now it's getting worse. And CULTIC is making it worse. I have no time to play games. Which is
I can really relate. It's like it's my job to be aware of all this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet I'm so busy doing the podcast stuff like half the time that I'm like, fuck, tomorrow is going to be my big like, oh shit, I need to like catch up on all the games I meant to play thing.
Yeah, and well, part of it is my fault because I say that every time, like, okay, here's a single player game I need to catch up on, and then I get off work, and then my buddies are like, you want to play Phasmophobia? I'm like, oh, absolutely, like here we go. Or hey, do you want to play 7 Days to Die for the 400th time? Yep, sure do. It's like all like my multiplayer games, like socializing with my friends always like feels. I have like major FOMO, like I don't want to miss out on time with my friends, so I'm like, yep, you're right, let's do that. And then like when I am like, oh, I'm gonna buckle down, I'm gonna play a single player game, I go play Super Metroid again. All right, I jump into Skyrim and start my 900th character. It's like jumping back to the oldies, the oldie but goodies. So it's like now I downloaded, I shamefully hadn't played all the way through Dusk yet, hadn't played all the way through Ion Fury yet. I'm like, okay, I need to beat these. Like I need to beat both of these games, and still working on it. Sorry guys, but it's just phenomenal. Part of my problem with Ion Fury is all I do is use the Loverboy all the time. And I don't think that's how the game was designed to be played. But I'm like, well, it's the best gun in the game. Yeah. I don't even know why there's other guns here. So
I think I beat Ion Fury in like a single weekend. I was totally floored by how great that game was. I just couldn't step away from it. And it's actually kind of rare that a game captures me like that. That's a combination of like how much time do I have and all that kind of thing. But there's just every once in a while you get one of those games that it just hits all the right buttons, and you'll cancel all your plans. That's a special moment. It doesn't happen every day, but
I like weirdly look forward to getting sick, because like I am absolutely terrible about. I'm like, I'm going to relax tonight, and then I sit down. I'm like, I should be working on something. I should be working on music. I should be working on CULTIC. I should be working on my house. I should be cleaning. And so like when I get sick is when I'm finally like, I'm going to sit on my ass and I'm going to play a video game. And, I'm not working today because I feel terrible. I'm not going anywhere. It's like my excuse to finally just like catch up on stuff. Like a few weeks ago, I got super sick adjusting to a medication actually. And I just watched all of season 2 of Mandalorian because I hadn't watched it yet. I was way behind. And I just laid on the couch miserable, but watched all of Mandalorian. And I was like, my God, this is so good. More realistic, I was like, I feel like death. I'm going to die. But no, I was like, but it's just, I weird, like when I start getting sick, instead of, I'm just usually like, excellent, here we go. I'm fine. Like I finally got to play all the way through Dishonored 2 a while back because I just like I got really nasty like sinus infection. I wasn't going to go do anything, and I picked it up from Redbox and just this was this was like 2 years ago, but
Yeah.
I picked it up from Redbox and just like played it through in one sitting. It was great. I had like nothing else going, and I couldn't talk really well, so there was no point in playing multiplayer games with my friends. So that's what I need to do. I need to go get sick more. I need to go lick more doorknobs. Is really what I should be doing. So
It doesn't happen often enough, but like one of my favorite things to do is watch movies like with groups of friends and stuff. And
Yep.
I just, I never really make time for it. So I made it part of like an obligation. That's how I do everything. Like anything that I want to do, I'll make it to where I have to do it. And so I started up like in the Keep Discord's movie night, and I'm like, okay, well, I better fucking, better watch some movies. I guess I have to.
Yeah.
Oh no, gosh, this backbreaking work I have to do watching all these movies and drinking beer with my friends.
All movies that are legally owned, by the way. Just there's nothing going on there.
Oh, of course, yeah. I'm serious. Like I'm really big on this. Like, I mean, I'm just gonna be straight up with you, man. If it's like some big fucking like Disney studio bullshit, like I don't give a fuck if they take my dollar. But if it's like an indie film or something like where I feel like the people behind it will actually get something out of it, I'm all for that. Same thing with music. Like, Led Zeppelin, they don't need my money.
Yeah.
I'll stream that shit on Spotify. But if it's like, a really cool band that I think is up and coming, like I'm gonna spend the money to buy it.
Well, so that's how I feel about gosh dang it, what game are we just? Oh, Proteus. That's how I feel about stuff like that. I'm like, like I have, I know a good amount of like game developers now who offer me like one of my friends, like Frozen Helm on Twitter.
Hyperstretch?
No, it's or is
Frozenheim?
No. That's his name. Or maybe change it to Ice Helm. Sorry, buddy, I'm butchering you right now. Oh, Ice Helm, yeah. At Ice Helm on Twitter. He makes great indie games. He made this like mini golf themed like survival horror game, and I helped him out with playtesting.
Please send me that. Please send me that.
Absolutely.
That sounds. I was just looking at a Golf Story the other day. I was like, man, this looks awesome. I really want to play this game.
Yeah, the name of the game is Gone Golfing. It's like $4 on Steam, and it's a super fun play. An alpha beta gamer played it if you want to watch, like if you want to get a taste of it. But I voiced like almost all of the characters in that game, just for funsies. And then he was like, oh, I'm gonna send you the key for the game. I'm like, screw that, I'm gonna buy it. it's like you worked your butt off on this. It's actually funny. There's I'm gonna go ahead and say it. There's a guy on Twitter. A guy, like every time I post something, this guy is great. He posts, or they, I actually don't know. They post on my game and they're like, please let me give you money. When can I buy this? I want to give you money. Every single post is like, I want to give you money. And the biggest thing I can't wait about in CULTIC is sending them a key so that they can't buy my game. Absolutely not. You've been supporting me this whole time. Just take the key.
I get you, but like my policy is pay it forward, right? So like if I can afford to, obviously I'm not going to go like way out of my way, but if someone sends me a free copy of a game and I really like it, I'm going to go buy it for a friend. That's usually what my policy. Can't always hold up to that, like I work full time. I've got a family to feed here, but by a family, I mean a wife and a cat, but the cat eats a lot, she does.
You know what eats more than a cat? 7 cats.
Really? 7?
Yeah. My girlfriend and I are both, very, very, very impulsive when it comes to sad, helpless animals in shelters and whatnot.
Not me.
But anyway, that's what I did with Gone Golfing. He actually did send me a key, and so I bought it for a friend of mine, and then he played it on stream. But
buy it and forward the key. Either way.
Yeah. But honestly, it's like the whole like just. Like in January, I had like less than 1,000 followers on Twitter. Like it wasn't very active at all. And I still like don't know how to handle all of like this positive reception, just people being just like even down to like the 3D Realm side of it, just like the kindness and the support and the help that comes out of that community, and then out of Twitter. I don't know how to handle it. It's too like I can't believe that I post things on Twitter and then like 20, 30, 40 people like have nice things to say. Like it's crazy. I don't know how to repay it. And so like, that's the thing is like, if like every single person that's commented on my Twitter, I'm like, let me give you a key. Like, thank you so much. Like I don't know if everyone on Twitter who supports me knows this, but you're going back into sappy territory, but like you're literally like making my dreams come true. I've wanted to be I've wanted to be like a game developer since I was like 10. I used to make like point and click adventures in PowerPoint where you would just like click on buttons to go to different slides, like choose your own adventure book style. And so this is crazy for me. It's like every day I'm sitting here living out like my dreams, and so it's nutty. And so that's why I'm like, yeah, this guy's like, hey, let me give you money. I'm like, no, let me give you my game. I just thank you so much.
How do you feel like, or I should say, how do you think I feel? Right? Like, I'm not even. I guess I'm a game developer now because I'm working on Call of Ragnar, but like, I started this out like I'm just doing a weird fucking podcast about first-person shooters that I thought no one would ever really give a fuck about, right? And then one day I get this message from Fred is like, hey, do you want to do all of the interviews for Realms Deep? I'm like, I mean, how is that? I totally resonate with you.
Yep.
Like,
yep.
This, and I don't want to like, maybe it'd probably be pretty easy because he's pretty tall. I don't want to suck his dick or anything, but like he's just like walking around throwing opportunities around at people. Like, and it's not like he always, he's one person. He can't be aware of everything, but he's definitely.
Yeah, Fred, who do you think you are? Stop changing people's lives.
You son of a bitch. You fucking tall, blonde punk. It sucks because I guess as of people hearing this, I'll be like, tomorrow I'm leaving his house. But it's so cool, man.
I had one of my favorite interactions with Fred just a couple days ago, and if this winds up being something we can't put in the podcast, feel free to cut it out. But it's post Realms Deep, so I think it's fine.
Nah, fuck
him. He told me to kind of like put the brakes on posting on Twitter so that we had some new stuff to share. Because I'm like,
oh, I was there for that.
You were there for that. He's like, well, pump the brakes on this, and I'm like, okay, but I just made this video of blowing a shitload of barrels up, and he's just like, God fucking damn it. He's like, okay, fine, one more. My favorite thing was that Alex is like flipping out, which Alex should be. Like, it's their job to market these products, and you guys are just spoiling it all over the internet. And I kind of saw both sides of the story because I'm like, okay, I get where Alex is coming from. Like, they're supposed to be the head of marketing here. We've got to do this the smart way. But then you and Fred are just like, but it's so cool. Like, it's just, I want to get to 7,000 Twitter followers. I did it.
Yeah, and that's just. Like, I mean, that's the thing is that you're going to have like 10 grand by the end of Realms Deep easily.
Nuts.
Who gives a fuck?
Nuts. No, that's that was a really fun interaction. Well, it's like it's I mean, he's right. It's hard to not want to just be like I'm really excited about this and I want to share it with as many people as possible. And then we talked about this briefly earlier of like what it's gonna be like when I can actually now. Future Jason post Realms Deep talk about CULTIC in its fullness, like as a 3D Realms game and as all this stuff. And I've been doing such a good job of keeping a lid on it. I mean the amount of people that know is very small in my personal circle. And then Fred just goes and retweets something of mine with hashtag RD2021. And I'm like, come on, man.
Well, here's the thing is that like there's a precedent set, and maybe I don't know if you saw last year or whatever, but like just because he says that doesn't mean that you are part of 3D Realms necessarily. It just means he's one of the indie games that we're showing off because it's really cool. Fair. There's still some mystery.
Yeah.
I saw that tweet by the way, but and I had the same thought, but I was like, yeah, whatever. And Fred, he gets off work and just goes home and gets fucking blazed up and does whatever he wants. So I'm like. I can tell the difference. So there's like morning time business Fred, and then there's like Fred in the evening where he's just like being a human being. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah.
It's honestly like I working like I think I mentioned this earlier, and I'm not trying to get too far into it, but like the 3D Realms community it's just what a great bunch of people. It's
Who's
like
your favorite? Pick one.
What's that?
Who's your favorite? Pick one.
Oh, Alex, 100%.
Okay.
Alex and I played Phasmophobia together, and she seduced a ghost once, and it was the most hilarious shit I've ever seen in my life, and that was it. No, like I think Alex and Fred both I've had a lot of positive interactions with, but that's not to say that one of the guys, Nick, actually lives near me in Kansas too. Yeah. So like when I first got on 3D Realms, they were like, "Hey, there's another Cans in here." I'm like, "Are you serious? How you guys are in Denmark and there's a freaking Kansan on here? Are you kidding me?"
Yeah. I bonded with Chris Holden really well because we both like had like a very short stint in pro wrestling. Like we
Oh,
both
okay.
like, so now we just like meet up and talk. Like every time there's like a big wrestling thing that happens, like, oh Chris, did you see this shit? Like I don't know. It's a great group though. You're right. Like very diverse, like cool.
Yeah, I feel like if you
relaxed
air this, it's going to sever all potential future friendships with anybody.
Fuck Alex. I hate Alex. Do not hang out with Alex.
Okay, we balanced it out. We're good.
No.
Well, so my background is actually professionally. My background is actually in graphic design and marketing. So, like working on like setting up streams and talking about Twitter stuff with Alex and Fred is really fun because that's like I don't do it anymore. I switched gears into more of like a tech role, but my college degree and my original professional background was in like design and marketing, and so that's all still really fun to me. It's nice to get to dip my toes back into that by making like trailers for CULTIC and doing like the cover art and well, not the cover art, like the box art, but like doing like the title and designing the UI and stuff like that is and then like doing posts on Twitter and trying to time those and like look at my analytics of like what so like all that stuff's really fun for me because I actually get to use my stupid degree that's gathering dust somewhere.
Yeah, I was actually I took a business and marketing class recently, and it's one of the things is I had thought about it, but it didn't really resonate to me with how like important it was. It was just like, as you said, the time that you post on social media is extremely important.
Yeah.
And people, some people just strike gold, I don't know why, they just do. They live in the right time zone or whatever, but like there's particular times of the day, and it's not just like when most people are on, it's like when most people interact and shit like that. Like it's a whole area of research that I'm not qualified to commentate on.
Yeah,
but it doesn't occur to you. But you've done so well, like even before you were complaining earlier, like, I only have 900 Twitter followers. Like, shit, I've been doing this podcast for like 2 years and I just got to 1,000 and I was proud of myself.
I didn't complain. I was just commenting on how much CULTIC has been like a springboard for me. Like I said, I'm still, maybe I'm going to be that asshole and popularity just completely goes to my head someday. But right now I'm still just floored by it. Yeah. I was actually out bowling the other night when I hit 7K and I checked my phone and I was like, oh my God, guys, I just hit 7,000. I was like, blew my mind. I was like, that's crazy. And it blew my mind when I hit 1,000. And then it just kept going. Like I never would have imagined it. At one point, so I used to post on Tumblr, right? And I had a game dev blog on there. And I had gotten almost like 3,800 followers, almost purely from my stupid meme skeleton game, Graveyard Shift 2, that I released a while back. And then the porn purge happened on Tumblr. And like, let me make this clear. I don't care if people use Tumblr for porn, whatever. There was nothing pornographic on my Tumblr. Yet, half of my followers disappeared overnight. Like when everybody started getting rid of their accounts because, they were unhappy with Tumblr's decision. Mm-hmm. Apparently, people who like game dev also really like porn on Tumblr, which is great. Do what you want. But so I was like, well, crap. And then it never recovered. Because Tumblr just seemed.
What does that say about the video gaming community?
It says they got their priorities straight. But it's.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's all right. But so I was like, well, I think I'm gonna have to find a new platform because I couldn't recover the numbers. Like I kept posting, and I felt like my quality and my content got better, but like I just couldn't get the followers back. And so I noticed that some of my peers were posting on Twitter, and like it really sucked to start over. It really sucked going from like 3,800 followers down to like 1,600 and then to 0 on Twitter. And so to be where I am now, actually, I saw in my I was checking something in my analytics the other day because I was trying to see how many followers I had pre-CULTIC so I could make that comparison. And I found a site that like lays out your analytics, and it also lists like where you are on Twitter in terms of like most popular like pages. And it's like, I feel like 7,000 is so many. Like that's a crazy number to me. And I'm like 450,000th in line in terms of popularity. There's 450,000 other like Twitter pages that are way more popular than mine. And so it's always a good like little perspective. Well, yeah, we're going to get there though. We're going to hit that 34 million mark. You watch. It's not going to happen. But it's just kind of nuts. Like it's, as much as this is mind blowing to me, like it could go a lot further. We'll see. I figure there has to be a cap for like boomer shooters, right? Like there has to be a point where just like you've officially hit everybody who likes boomer shooters in the market, which I figured would have been like 3,000 followers.
I'd say the real gauge of that is probably just like whatever Dave Oshry and New Blood have. Like that's easily the most. That's certainly the biggest Twitter following I know of. In that genre, and
that's almost always how I can tell when someone like that like retweets something of mine. Is I'll like go to check my phone and it's like, oh, I have 40 Twitter notifications. Like, what happened? And I go and I look and there's like 200 new followers, and I'm like, somebody popular retweeted something of mine. So then I scroll through to try to find who it is that retweeted something, and every single time I'm just like, oh my God, like I know that person. Like they worked on this game, they worked on that game, and that's another like it's funny you were saying here like how I feel with the Fred thing because he approached you about these podcasts, but then like for perspective, when you approached me about we're doing this podcast, I was like, oh my God, somebody wants to do a podcast about CULTIC. So I'm a little starstruck just sitting here talking to you. So
my favorite thing about it was like your first response was like, do you work with 3D ROMs? And I'm just like, I don't know, man. Not really. Like,
I've never experienced the wrath of Fred, and I just don't want to. I gotta be careful. Well, it's just like they're
it's not that bad.
I won't say who because I don't know if I'm allowed to. But another publisher kind of in this sphere approached me about picking up CULTIC, and I was like, I'm actually, it's really flattering, really appreciate the offer, but I'm actually already working with somebody. And they asked who it was, and I was like, I don't really think I can tell you, sorry. And then I went and told Fred about it, and he was like, oh, I know them, they're great. I'm going to send him a message right now. And I was like, what did that message look like? We got CULTIC, haha. Like, I don't know what that message looked like, but it's just like, so it's really hard for me to tell like what's under wraps and what's not, and so I've been trying to be so careful. And so when you're like, do you want to do a podcast about CULTIC? I'm like, I absolutely would love that. Let me go talk to my dad first and make sure that he says it's okay.
Yeah, the first thing I did when because I decided this, I already have I have an understood NDA here, right? Like I know what I should or shouldn't talk about, but I have an editing team who works under me who's going to do all the editing for these podcasts and shit. And I'm like, hey, Alex, I need to make sure it's cool if they see it. Like, I really want to do this one because yours is like one of the coolest looking games that's coming out that's being announced that I could, easily reach out and be like, hey, man, what's up? But yeah, I was like, I just need to make sure it's okay if Vince and Uncle Had and fucking Alex on my team see this, before it comes out. And she's like, fuck it, I don't care. Like, you know what happens if you fuck up? And I was like, yeah, I know what happens if I fuck up. Thanks,
3D
Mom.
Realms, Alex said she didn't care. Oh man, never mind. It's not my favorite anymore. I changed my mind.
Yeah, no, Alex is fantastic. Seriously, I know I said "fuck you, Alex" earlier, and I meant it, but like I do love you. Just so we're all clear.
This is in case everybody wasn't aware. This is the podcast where we plug hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades, and then we worship Fred and Alex a whole bunch. It's kind of a weird podcast.
No. So I guess we kind of got into like we're almost an hour and 40 minutes or whatever. But is there anything that really stands out to you when you were, because you said you got into game design when you were pretty young, right? Like, what did you say, 5th grade?
Yeah.
What were the games that like made you say, this is something I really want to do? Like that's
Super Metroid. 100%.
Okay.
Super Metroid is like on my list of games. It's at number 1, top game of all time. I love it. I've played it so many times. I first beat it before I started kindergarten. Like I had a Super Nintendo growing up. And so like it's my favorite game of all time. And I used to like on paper, like on construction paper, graph paper, I would like draw out little like side view maps of like areas, like worlds I wanted to add into Super Metroid and stuff like that. And then like Link to the Past, same way, like top down views of areas. And so that was kind of like and it's like I always really wanted to get into making games. My friends and I used to my friend Nicholas and I in like 2nd grade, we would on like in like arts and crafts time in school, we would get construction paper and we would draw like title screens for like games that we thought would be cool. And then we would like draw the art, whatever you can call art, the second graders do anyway. And we'd like draw the title and the characters. And then we'd even draw, like, my friend Nicholas thought it was hilarious to write out the options menu. So like add the options menu to our little like title screen. It always made him like laugh his ass off. And so, it was like, it's always been an interest. But I got in fifth grade. I was in fifth grade when, this is going to be a really weird segue for this, but I was in fifth grade when 9/11 happened, right? And a guy,
motherfucker.
Yeah,
I was in first grade.
Yeah.
You're the second podcast in a row that somehow 9/11 got brought up, by the way. It's so weird.
So
today.
So a kid in a class above me was, or no, I take it back. I think I was in fourth grade. Sorry. Because a fifth grade kid had actually made like a PowerPoint. It was like a very patriotic, like, PowerPoint the year after. And I was amazed that this kid that was just like a couple years older than me had made this, what I thought was a cinematic masterpiece. And in reality, it was PowerPoint with word art and Microsoft clip art. But to me, I was like, holy crap, that kid he made a movie. And so I asked him like how he did it. And he was like, oh, I just used PowerPoint. And I was like, I think we have that on the computer at home. And so I got into PowerPoint, started messing around. I figured out you could add. So I started out making animations in PowerPoint by setting the frame transition time to 1/10 of a second, which is as fast as it can go. And so it was like making like sprite movies with like Metal Slug sprites and stuff in PowerPoint at 1/10 of a second per frame. So I'd make these PowerPoints that had like 300 frames in them, and they're just like going by really, really fast. And then eventually I figured out you could add buttons and hyperlinks to other slides. And so I started doing like choose your own adventure. I mentioned that before. And then a friend of mine, a guy I knew on MSN Messenger.
Slow down. You made a choose your own adventure game in Microsoft PowerPoint?
Yeah. Yep. With clip art.
Wow.
Microsoft clip art. Uh-huh.
That is so cool.
And then a friend of mine who I knew through MSN Messenger was making like a Mega Man X like fan game in Game Maker. Mega Man X was one of my favorite games. So I was like, how the hell did you do that? Same thing I asked this guy who made the cinematic masterpiece in PowerPoint. How the hell did you do that? And he's like, I used to use Game Maker. What the hell is Game Maker? And I go and I look it up, and it's something that costs $20. And of course, $20 is a lot of money to a fifth grader. And so I did what anybody did, and I bought it 100% legally. And then just messed around. Game Maker like 5.1 was my very first version, and it was, and that's where I got started. It was just like I downloaded a bunch of Super Metroid sprites off of like Spriter's Resource wasn't a thing yet, and so I just got them from all kinds of hallowed corners of the internet back then. And it just started like putting those together. I didn't know how to code at all. I didn't know how gravity worked. I didn't know how to change the sprite of an object on the fly. And so like Samus facing right and Samus facing left were two totally different objects that just got swapped out. It was a nightmare. But like I didn't know, it was terrible. And it would be a couple of years probably before I ever retouched scripting at all. I was just using the drag and drop for everything. But then I finally got into like doing my own sprites in Flash because I didn't know how to do pixel art yet, but I was half decent at animating in Flash, and because I used to make Flash cartoons, and and here we are. I didn't start using Unity or doing 3D at all till 2015. So it's
people like you make me feel so stupid. And I talk to a lot of game devs, and I hear people that are like, yeah, when I was in like second grade or whatever, I was like programming shit. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because when I was in fifth grade, like you could not possibly, like, there's no way I could have done any of that stuff. People thought I was smart about Alabama standards, and I'm just like, had no computer knowledge at all. If you'd told me to like go download Game Maker and you can make games, I wouldn't have known what the first fucking thing to do was. Like Google. I didn't even see high-speed internet until like 2005. And I literally thought YouTube was just like this place where you go to watch Dragon Ball Z. And then I went home because my friend had it, like showed me that. And I went home and I was like, YouTube. And I type it in, and I didn't understand this either, but we had dial up. Mm-hmm. So it took me like 4 days to download a Pink Floyd music video. You know what I mean? Like I had no technological idea at all. Nothing.
Well, let me make you feel better about how smart young Jason was. So, whenever I was sick and had the flu as a kid, or like a stomach bug, my mom would always set us up with like a big mixing bowl with like a Walmart bag. That was like our puke bucket, right?
Mhm.
And so young me just knew, like, if you're sick, you get the bowl, and that's what you throw up in. We weren't really the kind of family that hunched over the toilet the whole time. They set us up on the couch. Here's your puke bowl. Here's cartoons. So young me one time felt I was gonna puke. It was gonna happen. I knew it was gonna happen. But I didn't know I was sick, so I didn't have a puke bucket ready. So young me runs to the kitchen. I open up the drawer or the cabinet where I know all the big bowls are. I grab a bowl to throw up in. That bowl was a colander. So I efficiently, in case you don't know what a colander is, that's one of those bowls with a bunch of holes in the bottom that you use to strain water out of things.
It's for spaghetti noodles.
That one.
Yeah.
So I effectively strained my vomit out for my mother. So all of the liquid was on the floor, but at least I saved her all the. So this smart programmer you're talking to here once puked in a colander as a child, and I don't. If my mom ever once considered like aborting me as a child, it was that moment right there.
That's like one of the best scenes in South Park, where Cartman's mom is trying to like get abortion legal for some reason. She keeps sleeping with like every politician up to the president, and finally Bill Clinton's like, "How old is your son?" He says, "How far along are you?" And she says, 8 years.
42nd trimester or whatever it is.
Wow. Okay.
We'll just put that one. I just wanted to put that in perspective for you. So it was. I was a selectively smart child. We'll go with that.
This has been really cool, man. I'm glad we got to do it, and I genuinely hope that we do it again, like later down the line when the demo will be out as we speak. But
oh God, are you wrapping up? Can we please not end this on the colander story? Can we put something else out there for somebody who flips straight to the end of the podcast so they don't have to hear about this idiot puked in a colander once?
We'll come up with a better story then. I'll hear you out.
Okay. Oh man. Oh, now you really put me on the spot. Oh, I don't think I have anything else for you.
Oh shit. Do you want me to ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Let's prompt it. Okay. So what is your hope? Now that people are picking up the game as we speak, as this is being broadcast to the world and everything in the vault of Realms Deep.
Right.
What is the thing that will make you feel finally validated, like you've made it?
I just like seeing people play the game and enjoy it, and just like talk about the things they enjoy about it. I mean, that it's really like that's it. Like being like, honestly, the big thing is like without prompting it, having like hearing somebody talk about my game. Like you're hanging out at like a game shop, and like you hear somebody off in the corner talking about what games they're playing, and some guy's like, "Shit, have you guys tried CULTIC out yet?" And like that's it. Like just like people that aren't just like my wonderful supportive friends and family talking about CULTIC, and like just like and sure, a lot that's kind of selfish and self-validation kind of thing, but like just this thing that I poured all of my time and effort and soul and free time into, and just people having fun with it, and like and hearing people appreciate the design decisions I made. And in order to get to this dream, I will never ever read the Steam reviews because I know better. I don't think I have the heart. I could read 100 good reviews for my game, and then one person who didn't like it would just crush me. And so I really have to brace myself for that, because I know that it won't, it's not going to resonate with everybody. But like, that's really it. Just I want people to enjoy CULTIC. I want people to like to take this thing that I've put together, and just like somebody somewhere is listening to the CULTIC soundtrack in on their phone or in their car. Somebody somewhere has CULTIC favorited in Steam. It's at like the top of their list. Somebody somewhere has there you go, the first CULTIC speed run. That's when I'll know I've made it. When somebody's like, I like this game enough to try to beat it as quickly as possible. Or maybe that's what you do when you don't like a game, is try to get through as quickly as possible. But
that'll happen by like the end of the day today for sure.
No, you can, at the moment, there's no stamina meter for sliding. So you can just chain slides together all you want. So have fun with that. Your pants will have no ass on them by the end of it. So I expect some nice cultic fan art of the protagonist with assless pants at some point. That's when I'll, you know what? Scratch everything else. That's when I'll know I've made it. The first cultic Rule 34.
Okay. That's a good goal. I can support that. Sounds like you've got your priorities straight.
We already covered that with the Tumblr thing.
Okay, I'll do the closing out part now. It has been fantastic. It has been a real pleasure to spend some time getting to know you and hanging out. And I hope that we get to do it again in the future when people have already done all this Rule 34 and in their ass hanging out from sliding too much thing.
Absolutely.
And I'm looking forward to just seeing you go on the journey. This is like one of my favorite parts about doing this is that I catch people like right before they're about to like hit the big time or whatever. And
we'll see.
You're definitely going to reach a far larger audience than the vast majority of your peers in terms of like totally independent people making boomer shooters. You know, like you got picked up by one of the coolest and most awesome producers and companies that you could possibly be picked up by. You drew the long straw, so to speak. Just specifically, you're going to get more marketing than most of them will, and that's going to be epic. Like that's going to be so good for you and so good for your game. So,
yeah,
best of luck.
I still sometimes like I still can't believe it. Like it boggles my mind that I'm looking like I look at my monitor and I've got this like 3D Realms Discord channel on here with all these folks. It's nuts. But yeah, I too have had a really good time. I appreciate you doing this podcast. I'm looking forward to part 2, the Rule 34 follow up. I think it'll be a really good time.
Yeah, it won't even be in video. We'll just do a slideshow of all the porn that people have made out of your game.
That's probably smart. Like I said, I'm really good at PowerPoint now, so I can definitely make that happen.
Yeah, and tenths of a second animations of cultic porn.
That's right. Yep, that'll be it.
Okay.